In this course, we will discuss how to verify compliance with the 2008 Energy Standards during the inspection process for alterations to residential buildings. We will only discuss the inspection process for alterations to residential buildings that have complied using the prescriptive approach. For questions regarding these requirements or the performance approach, please refer to the 2008 Residential Energy Plan Review Checklist for alterations in the resource library of this course. As described in the Plan Review course, the California Energy Commission has developed a series of checklists to help simplify verifying compliance with the 2008 Energy Standards. The checklist addressed in this course identifies the specific energy features that a field inspector will verify on site during the final inspection for the envelope, HVAC, water heating, and lighting alterations. Our goal of this course is to simplify the verification process so that we may increase enforcement of the 2008 Energy Standards and ensure that field inspectors are able to verify the energy features on the checklist in a timely manner for residential alterations. The main task of the field inspector is to verify that these altered building components meet the specifications on the Certificate of Compliance or the CF1R Alt form and the mandatory measures. The field inspector shall issue a correction notice if an energy feature is not installed according to the CF1R Alt form or is non-compliant with the mandatory measures. To bring the alteration into compliance, the installing contractor may have to install a more energy efficient component or resubmit the CF1R form using the performance approach. For more information on this, please refer to the 2008 Residential Energy Inspection Guide for Alterations on the resources page of this course. Let's begin this lesson by defining the difference between an alteration and a repair according to the 2008 Energy Standards. An alteration is any change to a building's water heating system, space conditioning system, lighting, or envelope that is not an addition. In other words, an alteration occurs when equipment or a building component is added or replaced. Some examples of an alteration include adding or replacing a skylight or a window, adding or replacing a central air conditioning system, replacing the outdoor condensing unit of a split AC system, replacing the furnace, adding or replacing a water heater, adding or replacing hardwired lighting, and a re-roof. Alterations are within the scope of the 2008 Energy Standards and must comply with the requirements detailed in this course. A repair, on the other hand, is the reconstruction or renewal for the purpose of maintenance of any component, system, or equipment in the existing building. In other words, a repair occurs when a piece of equipment or a system breaks or malfunctions and a maintenance person must fix it so that it functions properly again. Some examples of a repair include replacing a broken pane of glass in a window, replacing a failed compressor in an outdoor condensing AC unit, replacing a failed fan motor or gas valve in a furnace, and replacing the heating element in a water heater. Repairs are not within the scope of the 2008 Energy Efficiency Standards and are not required to comply with the requirements detailed in this course. Now, let's begin at the top of the inspection checklist and discuss which energy features to verify for envelope alterations, which include assembly alterations, which include the replacement of any wall, ceiling, or floor assembly, fenestration alterations, which include the replacement or addition of a window or a skylight, and re-roofs. Let's walk through each of these envelope alterations separately as if I were a field inspector. Let's start with assembly alterations and discuss the energy features to verify before the final inspection. When an entire wall, ceiling, or floor assembly has been replaced, I would verify that the R value of the installed insulation for the altered assembly matches the CF1R Alt insulation form. The insulation values are identified under the opaque surface details on the CF1R Alt installation form. The next item to verify on the checklist is the proper installation of the insulation. To ensure that the insulation is properly installed, I would verify the following: that there are no gaps or voids in the cavity. The insulation must completely fill the cavity so that it touches all 6 sides once the interior drywall has been installed. Batts should not be compressed or stuffed into the cavity. The insulation must be properly cut around obstructions like electrical boxes, and where electrical wires or plumbing pipes cross a stud or joist bay, batts should be delaminated or split and carefully fitted around the plumbing and electrical lines. Any cracks between the framing shall be filled with expanding foam. Around windows and doors, low expanding foam shall be used to seal the gap between the rough opening and the window if allowed by the manufacturer. If this is not allowed, then backer rod must be used to seal this gap. Next, the checklist asks if all infiltration areas, joints, and openings are sealed. I would verify that all openings in the altered envelope are caulked, gasketed, weather stripped, or otherwise sealed to prevent infiltration and exfiltration. I would pay special attention to the gaps between the framing and windows and the framing and doors, penetrations through raised floors, exterior panels, and all siding materials, openings for plumbing, electrical wiring, gas lines, and other penetrations must be sealed with caulk or foam in all ceiling and top plates in both exterior and interior walls. And all exterior rim joists must be airtight and have no gaps or holes to the outside. This usually requires spray foam insulation or rigid insulation sealed around the edges with caulk or a foam sealant. The last item on the checklist for assembly alterations asks if the CF6R ENV1 installation form has been completed, signed, and posted on site, or made available to me for my final inspection and compliance verification. I would verify that the R value of the installed insulation for the altered assembly is identified on this form. The installing contractor shall sign this form, or it may be signed by the homeowner only if the homeowner was the person who installed the insulation. Please note that the installing contractor shall also provide a copy of the CF6R ENV1 installation form to the homeowner. In this next part, we will discuss the inspection process for fenestration alterations. Using the energy inspection checklist for residential alterations, let's discuss the energy features to verify in order to verify compliance with the 2008 energy standards. When a window or skylight has been added or replaced, I would start by verifying that the U factor and SHGC values from the NFRC label on the altered windows match the CF1R Alt fenestration form. These efficiency values are identified under the fenestration proposed area on the CF1R Alt fenestration form. Please note that replacing the glass in an existing sash and frame, or replacing a single sash in a multi-sash window are considered to be repairs and are exempt from the U factor and SHGC requirements. The next item on the checklist to verify for fenestration alterations is exterior shading. Sometimes the SHGC value is calculated as having an exterior shading device. If this is the case, I would verify that the exterior shading device identified on the WS3R form has in fact been installed with the altered window or skylight. A complete list of exterior shading devices are detailed on the WS3R form in Appendix A of the Residential Compliance Manual. The next items to verify are the fenestration area and orientation. When more than 50 square feet of windows or skylights have been added, I would verify that both the area and orientation of the newly installed windows matches the CF1R Alt fenestration form. These values are identified under fenestration proposed areas on the CF1R Alt fenestration form. The last item on the checklist for fenestration alterations asks if the CF6R ENV1 fenestration form has been completed, signed, and posted on site, or made available to me for my final inspection and compliance verification. I would verify that the U factor and SHGC values, area of the installed windows, and exterior shading device, if applicable, are identified on this form. This form shall also be signed by the installing contractor, or it may be signed by the homeowner only if the homeowner was the person who installed the windows or the skylights. Please note that the installing contractor shall also provide a copy of the CF6R ENV1 fenestration form to the building owner. Now, let's discuss re-roofs, which are the last envelope alteration on the checklist. When more than 50% of the exterior surface of the roof, or more than 1,000 square feet of roof has been replaced, whichever is less, I would verify that a cool roof was installed or that one of the alternative requirements has been met. When a cool roof is installed, the solar reflectance and thermal emittance values from the CRRC label on the cool roof material shall match the CF1R Alt re-roof form. These efficiency values are identified under roofing products on the CF1R Alt form. Please note that the applicant may specify an aged 3-year solar reflectance value or an initial solar reflectance value on the CF1R Alt re-roof form. I will need to pay special attention to ensure that the tested aged or initial solar reflectance value on the CRRC label matches the reflectance value identified on the CF1R Alt re-roof form. If the re-roof project meets one of the alternative requirements listed on the CF1R Alt re-roof form, I would verify that the alternative has in fact been installed. Some examples of alternative requirements include R30 ceiling insulation, a radiant barrier, or buildings with no ducts in the attic space. A complete list of alternative requirements may be found on the CF1R Alt re-roof form in Appendix A of the Residential Compliance Manual. The last item on the checklist for re-roofs asks if the CF6R ENV1 re-roof form has been completed, signed, and posted on site, or made available to me for my final inspection and compliance verification. I would verify that the solar reflectance, aged or initial, and thermal emittance values of the installed cool roof material or the alternative requirement has been identified on this form. The installing contractor shall sign this form, or it may be signed by the homeowner only if the homeowner was the person who installed the roofing material. Please note that the installing contractor shall also provide a copy of the CF6R ENV1 re-roof form to the building owner.